Okay, so you bought a greens powder to help you get a bit of extra nutrients and superfoods in your diet every day to add into your smoothie. Great, right? Should be super healthy. Well, actually, I'm here to tell you this might be doing a little bit more harm than it does good. Okay, and welcome to today's video. Now, if you've ever used a greens powder, then you'll think that by adding these in, you'll be boosting your immune system and making yourself super healthy with all these added nutrients you're getting in the diet. Trouble is, there are a few reasons why this just isn't the case. Now, the product I'm reviewing is not necessarily about this specific product, so I'm not being paid to review this one. It's just an example of greens powders that are out there, so it could be anyone. I just happened to buy this one with my own money. So full disclosure, I have no affiliation with this one. But just my quick question of the day is, are you currently using a greens powder yourself? Are you adding them into some smoothies or having them in place of some vegetables? Go ahead, drop me a message in the comment section. Let me know what you're up to. So many of these greens powders contain a very, very high dose of vitamins and minerals per serving. Now, on the face of it, you might think that's a very, very good thing to have a super dose of vitamins and minerals every time you have one of these smoothies. And they are marketed as a quick and easy way of getting in good nutrition to the diet. But here's the thing. First and foremost, we should be able to get all of our nutrient needs from whole food sources first. This is important for several reasons, as a lot of people have very irregular eating patterns, especially when it comes to eating whole grains, fruits and vegetables. So encouraging a food first approach is often the best strategy, as it helps people deal with some of these irregular eating patterns. And secondly, whole food sources, fruits and vegetables, whole grains, they don't come in hundreds of times or even thousands of times the RDA of the specific nutrient that you need per day, which is one of the major things that these green powders tend to have, is that each nutrient, each vitamin and mineral tends to be in the hundreds of percents of your daily RDAs. Now, when you're consuming nutrients, hundreds of times or thousands of times over what your body actually needs per day, there isn't really any further benefit to having them in there. And thirdly, let's talk a little bit about fiber. Now, in the Western world and in developing worlds, fiber intakes are pretty low. Average around 20 grams or less than 20 grams per day is the typical average intake in the Western world. And RDAs for fiber can be up to around 30 grams per day, 30 grams, maybe up even to 50 grams per day. In certain countries that adhere to a more Mediterranean style of eating, this isn't necessarily an issue because naturally those diets tend to contain high amounts of fiber, whole grains and such things. So, getting in 30, 40, 50 grams of fiber if you're eating a Mediterranean diet naturally isn't necessarily an issue. In countries like the UK, USA, Western Europe, where obesity rates are pretty prevalent, then a low fiber diet, less than 20 grams per day, is likely to pose some health risks. But what's the problem, Ash? Surely greens powders contain a whole bunch of fiber too, don't they? Okay, well, yes, they do contain some fiber per serving, but the amount of fiber per serving is relatively low if you were to compare that against the equivalent whole food fruit and veg if you were to consume that. So for these green powders, you're looking at somewhere around 1 to 3 grams of fiber per serving. The issue here then is that if someone, or the way people use these green powders, is likely to be in place of a serving of fruit and veg in the day, or to replace the whole amount of fruit and veg in the day. So let's say, for example, you're already getting less than 20 grams of fiber, or maybe around 20 grams of fiber from whole food sources. If you're then replacing some of those whole food sources with the greens powder, potentially your fiber intake is going to decrease even more below what the recommended amount is anyway. You're thinking to yourself, okay, well, I could just have more servings of the greens powder just to bring up the fiber content per day. But again, as I mentioned earlier, even one serving is going to be mega dosing nutrients. So if you're then adding in more portions of the greens powders, you're then going to be further mega dosing the nutrients, which again would then lead to affecting the absorption of other nutrients. So again, you're not really, you're creating another problem by solving one problem. And the other key point here is if you're someone that's managing your weight, managing energy balance, who's looking maybe to lose weight or to remain weight stable, Whole foods, fruits and vegetables, whole grains are very, very good at helping us do that because they're very filling. They contain a little water content and a little fiber content, and it's very hard to overeat in calories, and you don't absorb all of the calories from those things, which is something the greens powders can't do because a few scoops of a powder in water or in a smoothie is not potentially that filling. So you're still able to consume a large amount of food throughout the day beyond that. And I know that some brands are throwing things into the mix, like adding in pre and probiotics into their powders to make them a bit more appealing, to give them that potential added benefit of health. The problem here though is that gut health and gut bacteria is a fairly new science, and everyone's gut microbiome is very different. So if a brand chucked in a bunch of billions of some certain type of bacteria, that may or not be beneficial for you. And then you have to consider the price per serving because of these extra added things. Is it really worth it? Does this mean that you should toss away the greens powder that you bought because they're totally useless for you? The issue for me as someone giving you some advice is that in reality there isn't really a lot of good research out there on the efficacy of greens powders versus whole foods. There just isn't really the research projects behind it to say they're totally useless or they might be beneficial. So in this instance, you kind of have to take what I say with a bit of pinch of salt, and kind of have to make your own mind up on some of these things. Key thing to keep in mind is, as with all supplements, and this is indeed a supplement, is first and foremost try to get all of your nutrients in from whole food sources. That's going to be way more beneficial for you. But if you are lacking on certain days, or you just don't have the time and you feel like you just need to get a little bit extra in for whatever reason, then okay, go ahead, supplement in. You can certainly do that. Many people will add them into things like soups, into smoothies in the morning, into pasta, into sauces, and they can just boost up the nutrients in that sense. In this situation, that's cool, go for it, adds a bit of flavor, adds a bit of taste, adds some nutrients in. Be careful, do not replace your daily intake of fruits and vegetables with these things completely. These are merely just to add in if you absolutely need to do that. Fantastic, so you can use them, you cannot. Get your fruits and veg in, and if you need to, supplement. Guys, if you get any value from these videos, then go ahead, drop me a message in the comments section. Let me know your nutrition journey. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so also. But that's all for now. So from me, that's all, and I will see you next video.